There's a one-story house in which everything is yellow. Yellow walls, yellow doors, yellow furniture. What color are the stairs?
There's no going down to the basement.
There's a one-story house.
Right. There's no stairs
There's
unless
no
they're going down to
stairs.
the basement. Is that it? Did I win?
That's a good one. That's
That's
a
it.
good one.
Okay.
That's a good one. That's a good one. You win. You've got it. There are no stairs. I would have said,
we
yellow.
go.
My first
Yeah,
instinct
I
would
know.
have been,
I could see where you were going there.
Yeah.
Listen
and that's
carefully.
why today we have the Data Whisperer.
Yeah.
Welcome to an exciting episode of Insights Digital. I'm Freddie Maestro, always with Tabo Serrame. How you
Hey,
doing today?
Freddie. How you doing, brother?
Listen, it's a brand new day and the best day to be hosting Scott Taylor, the Data Whisperer, with us. And he's with us via the interwebs today, streaming in and talking to us all the way from the US of A.
New
Scott,
York, baby.
New York, how you doing?
All right. How you guys doing? Great to see you. Wearing my yellow shirt, practically. So ready for
That's
grill
the
there.
joke, right?
That's where I took it.
Actually, I'm talking to you from a beautiful place outside of New York called Black Rock, Connecticut. I'm here on the water. It's
Yeah.
a spectacular day, but I'm ignoring the view outside.
Beach
'cause it's
view.
too nice to focus on you guys.
That's it. Guys, I'm Tao Serame, your digital guy, your data guy. We're talking all things data today. And what I love is Scott is that guy that says, you know what, let's talk about facts of data.
Yeah.
Let's talk about data for data.
Yeah. Let's talk
Forget
about what it
the-
actually means.
What it actually means, right?
Forget what the marketers tell you we have extracted from this data.
No.
For the first time now we talk about what Scott's wearing on his hat.
Truth.
There we go. Yes.
Didn't want to say it myself.
Talk about the truth.
Let's talk about the truth. So who's Scott? What's his background? And why is he here? Yeah.
Why am I here? That's a
Yes.
good question. To just get it right out of the way, in terms of my hat, it's not a coincidence. You can boil down my data philosophy to 3 words: truth before meaning. So you've got to determine the truth in data, data management, data governance, data stewardship,
Yep.
master data, reference data, metadata, MDM, RDM, PIM, DAM, all those foundational activities that an enterprise needs to invest in to create that core content that flows through everything else. So you got to determine the truth first before you derive meaning out of analytics, business intelligence, data science, data visualization, data literacy, all the sexy stuff that everybody's interested in. So that's where data ends up in analytics, but I really focus
Yeah.
on where data starts. And you got to start the right way.
You have
Otherwise,
to.
you're not going to end up where you got to go. So it's very simple that way. But so I wear the truth hat to remind people truth before meaning. It's not chicken or egg here.
Yeah.
It's egg and omelet. If you do not have the truth, you're not going to get meaning out of your data. It's as simple as that.
No, you
And that's
can't.
why, we want to start it off with good data management and the foundation of data and seeing data management as the drive that we should focus on as we embark in our digital transformation. Now, Scott, you're speaking now of the importance of making sure that as you design your data system, you think of truth first and not the end result. And most establishments would rather focus on what they want to get from the data before they even plan how they are going to set up their data management system. So what is the good practice in this regard when you are about to step in and plan your data management system or start to design how your data should look like?
And just before you answer that, sorry, Scott. So what does I think on top of that, it's the layer that says, what is the your current view of an enterprise data warehouse, and what's some of the elements and capabilities that you think should be in place for that design, for that plan? and also on top of that, what is the data management EDW, if we may put it, of the future?
A lot of questions there. You want me to go back and explain to people where I even come from? I forgot my own introduction. Scott Taylor, the data whisperer, with Meta Consulting. That's my little boutique consultancy.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
We're about what it's about. We talk about how people talk about data. We're not changing our name to Facebook.
No.
Not happening. But I've been in the data space since pre-2K. I worked
Yeah.
at Nielsen, I worked at Dun & Bradstreet, and I've really had the fortunate career that's exposed me to every kind of enterprise in every category at every level of data maturity all across the world. And through that experience, I began to see some common themes, some common situations, and have come to the conclusion that if you are an enterprise of any sort, doesn't matter whether you're a bank or a manufacturer or a media company, if you're an enterprise, you have enterprise data, and if you have enterprise data, you have enterprise data problems. There's just and these challenges are, if they're not identical, they're certainly more the same than they are different.
100%.
And through my work, I try and help people realize that, get some validation of, okay, it's not me, it's not our organization, it's just endemic, and it's just the nature of the enterprise beast that you're going to have different silos, you're going to have disparate systems, you're going to lack any kind of common standard. Maybe you grew by acquisition and some other company that you bought has a different set of definitions.
We
All
see that
needs
quite
to
a
be
lot,
corrected.
actually.
Yeah. So, Freddie, to answer your question in terms of how you set it up,
Yeah.
one of the things around getting it going is you've got to have the organization support the idea of setting standards. And that just doesn't mean but standards around definitions for really master data. That's my favorite kind of data. Master data, reference data, metadata, those core structural piece parts that make everything else go. If you don't have a common understanding across your enterprise for the idea of what is a relationship, could be customer, vendor, partner, prospect, citizen, patient, consumer, a lot of different names for it, as I mentioned, but those are all relationships. And if you don't have relationships, you don't have a business. So relationships are really important. to every
Relationships
company.
are key, eh?
Yeah, and so the data about those relationships needs to be well structured and well managed and standardized across the organization. And then also for brands. So every company's got a brand. They're not all,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola or McDonald's, but every company that delivers value to their relationships does it through some form of branded offering. Could be a product, a service, could be a location if it's a retailer, it could be a banner, it could be include ingredients and materials if it's a manufactured item, but whatever that is, it's
Yeah.
still a brand.
I mean, it
So-
goes to say to the general entrepreneur who's sitting there planning for their business, that you have to first define the standards of your business. Now that means also defining what your business is here to deliver. When you know what it's here to deliver, then you get to understand and have clarity on what kind of relationships you're building within your business. And once there's still, fine lines in what your business actually does,
Yeah.
then your data is going to look exactly like your plan.
That is it, right? And I
That's the
like
way to think about
I like what you said, Scott. Like there's some nuggets there. Although you haven't answered me.
Ask your data warehouse question if that's what you're looking for,
I
because
know.
I don't get technical. I'll answer right now. I'm about the why, not the how. And so whether
Ah.
it's a data warehouse or a lake house or an analytics
It
graph
doesn't
hub,
matter.
fabric mesh, doesn't
Yeah,
matter. I mean,
yeah.
it's like that's the how stuff. That's
Yeah.
and my expertise sits in ways people can explain the value of data management to their executive leadership,
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
to their business stakeholders.
Yeah.
And those people do not care about how you're going to do it
No,
until they
they don't.
understand why you're going to do it. Why is this important to my company?
Yeah.
So we all have a part to play. I think I play mine really well, but I stick to my position. So, for me, a lake house is just where my data goes on vacation.
That's a lake house.
That's what it is.
That's it.
like-
Let's
Yeah.
draw on the point that you mentioned, because it's
Yeah.
very important, right? A lot of companies do quite a lot of work around M&As, right? And when they do M&As, the traditional company or the main company had this setup of, and it goes back to what you're saying, design, right? Of specific data.
Yeah.
And when they're now merging, they had their own systems, they had their own processes and ways in which they interpreted what you call metadata, right? And meta and master data, if you may put it. And
Right.
for
Yeah. That
me,
whole structural side.
it becomes very complicated because one, it is now going back to what you said, standards. So what are some of the considerations that you think, when companies do M&As, they can bring into the table in terms of thoughts around how do we actually standardize our data when we've done these type of M&As,
It's a big challenge in that part of the space.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
if you think about those two domains that I talked about, relationships and brands, if you do an M&A, you're probably getting new brands, so you don't have a lot of duplicates between your products and the other. The products might serve the same need, so you might need to
Yeah.
reconcile some of that. But in general, if I make widgets and I bought another widget company, they don't make the same widgets I do.
Yeah.
But they probably share customers and they
100%.
probably share vendors and other relationships. Even if it's a global company and I'm in one geography and I bought a company in an entirely different geography, there are still customers at the global level that we might share.
Yep.
So, one of the exercises right away is, okay, do we have duplicates? Have we reconciled and unduplicated these customer masters? Do we have the same type of hierarchical structure?
Yep.
When I say I'm selling at this, build to, ship to, plan to, sell to, whatever those levels are in that hierarchy for that relationship, do these two new sales teams talk about it the same way? Does finance have a consistent way to roll up customer activity? Does executive leadership understand the complete commercial relationship that they have with another entity? These are all really basic business questions. This isn't a whole lot of, data science going on here. This is
Yeah.
just blocking and tackling stuff. Other areas that cause a lot of grief are things like category.
Yeah.
Do we categorize our relationships in the same way? Do we use a standard for that? There's probably every company I've ever gone to, if they take a look at all their customer information and they have it by category, let's say they have it by industry or vertical, they always have a big category called other
Yeah.
or
Or unsegmented.
segmented. That happens because the
man.
data sucks in that,
Yeah,
right? People
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
stewarded that. They haven't gone through the rigor or had the governance to go, we have to fill that in. We can't have, if we've got a vertical strategy, we can't have
Yeah.
a big slice of that pie, say other. And then the last area of standardization that I see as really important is geography. Do we have the same market definitions? Do we have the same geographies? Do we have, geography drives an awful lot of stuff, and, targeting, distribution, market share penetration, often around geography. So I've backed into what I call, and this is in my book, the 4 C's of data structure, master data, which are code, unique identifiers, that helps you unduplicate stuff.
100%.
A company, that gives you that hierarchical structure. Category, which is a way to segment things. And then, just because they all start with C, you have country or some form of geography. And when you start to put that on your data to help standardize it,
Yep.
you then know where something is, you know what it is, you know who owns it, and you know it's unique. And if you have that up front, a whole lot of data problems go away.
So you may
Very simple way to explain the importance of data structure, but
Yeah.
that's how I would talk to a CEO about, here's why you need to spend $10 million on your MDM program or your metadata, whatever that is. It's like, we need a code, a company, a category, a country on every piece of relationship data we've got to be able to do all those other wonderful analytic data science, predictive stuff you
Yeah.
want because
Yeah.
you don't have this foundation. Is not going to happen.
In South Africa, we call it ntontun. You'd be like
Ntontun?
ntontun, like and stuff, right?
stuff.
And just like and
stuff.
stuff.
Data and
Oh,
and
and stuff.
tuntun.
Okay.
Yeah, data and ntontun.
So there's a lot of tone out there. So
Exactly.
I love it, and I love how you've put down those those 4 C's for us. You know, when you
real
speak of
simple.
them.
I try to get, truth before meaning, code,
Yeah.
company, category, country. I don't get very deep,
Yeah.
but I think the way I look at the world has a very broad appeal because it really simplifies a lot
Simplifies
of
a lot of processes.
noise and the confusion in the data space.
And how do you find a lot of people right now, right, that haven't encountered the 4 C's as you've mentioned them, often have a trail of thought that leads them to building these catastrophic data systems that they build. What is the common problem in that trend? What is it that leads people to just go like, okay? One of the things that I could think of top of mind is that often people rush to market and they just want to get stuff out. They don't want to think things through. But what is the common trend that an entrepreneur or a business falls into by looking at its competitors and going, okay, they got this, so we want this, and therefore this is how we now going to change our systems?
At the enterprise level, what I see is people get distracted by the sparkly, shiny stuff, the cool, sexy stuff.
Yep.
Data management is not sexy.
It's
I think
not.
it's cool, but it's not. It is just
It's
like it's
not
not
sexy.
new. It is
Yeah.
back-breaking work. It's stuff. It's thought of a lot as clerical, back office,
Yeah.
unglamorous. Why do we need to do? Why do we
Cleaning.
need to do all this data cleansing instead of doing
Yeah.
wonderful predictive, anticipatory analytics?
Yeah.
So people focus too much on that. And using an analogy, it's as if somebody's just focused on the meal and they don't care about the ingredients, which if you
True.
cook, that's impossible, right? So if
Yeah.
you were cooking dinner for your family, you couldn't say, I'm focusing on how great my technique is
No.
in putting this meal together, but it tastes like crap because guess what? You bought lousy ingredients.
Yeah.
So it's that simple notion, and it's undeniable. I call it the golden rule of data. Do unto your data as you would have it do unto you. What you put in is what you get out. And you
Scott.
need to continually remind people of that.
And it goes down to the bottom line as well, right?
Yeah.
Because now, when you give that data that is garbage to your data scientists, their models are not going to work. They're going to
exactly, yeah.
predict the wrong stuff. You're going to end up selling the wrong stuff. Once you sell the wrong stuff, it goes down to bottom line. And you're asking yourself, why are we not performing well?
Yeah.
But you don't go down and say, how did we build this house that we're not performing well in? It's not just strategy from an organizational strategy,
Yeah.
but it's also around data strategy. To say, how do you design, I love the phrase digitally led, How do we get to the digitally led organization? It starts from the foundation. You build it up. You clean your data. You build systems. You build lakes. And people get to source the real data. I know you're not into the how, but what's your let's go into the strategy, right? Some organizations look at the 3 V's as tools and techniques to design their strategy.
Yeah.
So for the general exec that is not technical, what are the 3 V's? How can they use it as a strategy to better understand their data and also, make critical data decisions, basically? of that sort of overall strategy.
Are
I know
you
it's
referring to my three V's or the three V's of big data? Which three V's? I have three V's.
let's talk about both.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the three V's of big data, right? Volume, velocity, variety. That was the definition that Doug Laney, who's a friend of mine, coined when he was at Gartner.
Yep.
Some people think that, they just come up with another word that starts with V and that ends up being part of big data. It's like, oh, value, viscosity. But I mean, there's a lot of different parts.
Viscosity.
Like, it's just like, yeah, exactly. It's like, I find that exercise kind of silly when people are like, here's the 10 V's of big data. No, there's 12 V's of big data. No, there's 42 V's of big data.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's like in
just
marketing.
all that
In marketing, it starts with the 4 P's of marketing. There's like 6 P's, 7 P's of
no, there's
marketing.
7 P's.
Now it's like
Well,
12,
we found
16
another word.
P's of marketing.
we find another word begins with P. Let's throw it in there.
Handle
all
your
that,
P's
but
and
that's
V's. Handle your P's and V's.
that's actually an example of some of the distraction I think is in the data space is people playing those games, is coming
Yeah.
up with like the newest, coolest way to say stuff so they can coin this new term and be the one who's, lake house. Again, I am not picking on lake house technically, but I think if you say lake house to an executive, they go, what the heck are you talking? What is that?
What is
Again,
Hadoop? What is
What is SQL?
data.
My favorite one to pick on is NoSQL.
yeah. No
You know
SQL.
what does the NO stand for in NoSQL?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you guys know? Right?
No.
It
yeah.
stands not only.
Not only
Yeah,
SQL,
not only SQL. Yeah.
so
So
other data.
where else in the history of human communication does NO mean
Not only.
yes?
It's more.
only.
Not only SQL.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anybody said NoSQL? Oh, I thought we liked SQL. No, we're not
No,
using
no.
not
No,
NoSQL.
no
I mean
SQL.
NoSQL. So it's an example of the ridiculousness in terms of the terminology and
Yeah.
the algo that goes on, or the argo that goes on in our space with this cacophony of terms that people use to confuse folks. So long-winded way to get back to. So my three V's, however, which are definitely a knowing wink to the three V's of big data.
Yeah.
Mine are vocabulary, voice, and vision, and I wrote about them in my book. I might as well plug my book here.
Of
Telling
course.
your data story, data storytelling for data management. You'll see right on the cover, it is 99% buzzword free.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's
I
a
did
good
not want
one.
to overpromise.
99%.
did not want to overpromise.
Because you don't want it to just be heavy with terminology and all of that just becomes dialogue that doesn't go anywhere.
It's within the data bubble. We love to talk to ourselves and all this terminology. Is it data governance or is it data enablement? Is it data literacy or is it data illiteracy? We play with all these words and data's the new oil. No, it's not oil.
It's
like oil
gold.
because you can refine it. No, it's not oil because it's not sustainable. And then people go, oh, data's not the new oil. It's the new soil because you add S to oil. It's like you're playing with all this business poetry. And I think business people have no time for this. So
No,
I
they
try
don't.
and cut through all that babble
Yeah.
and say, you've got to speak in the business language, which is the first V. So vocabulary, the words you use are really important.
Yeah.
You don't walk in and say NoSQL and R and all these other, techniques. First of all, you keep the techniques out of it, but you also use words that the business already understands.
Yeah.
A good example lately is I'm hearing a lot about data contracts.
Yes.
There's data products, there's data monetization. If you went to your CEO and said, we want data contracts for our data products to enable our data monetization, they have a completely different interpretation of that statement.
Idea
Of
what
course,
that
of
statement
course, of
means.
Yeah,
course.
they're like, you're going to sell our data, and now we got to have license. Aren't you in IT? What do you mean selling? What products are you talking about? We already have these products.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating it for dramatic effect, but the word product and contract and monetization have an existing word outside of the data space, or existing
100%.
meaning outside of the data space that the people who use those words who are in data don't realize that they are confusing people right up front.
Yeah.
Right up front.
True.
So I get pretty passionate about this because, again, a data product is becoming a real thing in the data space, but it isn't something that you sell.
Yes.
Yes.
And, a data contract is like, how's that different than an SLA? It just sounds cooler. And data monetization, again, there's a lot of great leaders out there who talk about data monetization, but they will very quickly backpedal and say, oh, we don't always mean
Sell the
money.
data.
Yeah.
Don't always mean
Yeah.
money.
Well,
But-
the
but-
root of monetization, I think, is the word money. No, we mean
Money.
capturing value. So capturing value is what then.
Yeah, and get
then
the
call it
value
that.
out
So-
of the data. That's what we are saying. But
Yeah.
in essence, it throws off a different meaning. So with the first V that you spoke of, it's vocabulary, very important.
So get the words right. Use the words of the business. Use if you want to speak to the business, speak the language of the business, and make sure that you're not, unless it's very, very important for you to create a term that they need to understand. You have to learn their business language. It's not the other way around.
And it goes on to arc with what we were speaking about earlier on about standardization.
Yeah.
That because there
Yeah,
is
very
no
much so.
set standards in the data world, everybody just thinks how they think and hopes that the next person understands it. So with being able to get the first V right, to be able to get the vocabulary right, what's the single business process that you have to go through when you're planning your data to allow you to say, okay, man, let's now just talk about the first V. Let's talk about the vocabulary that we're about to use here. This is the business understanding of these terms, and this is then the systems understanding of these terms.
Yeah, that would be a classic business glossary, data dictionary.
Yeah.
Those kind of basic documents and processes that
Yeah.
enterprises need to go through when they want to describe and document
Yeah.
their data structure.
But
We
but
have a
Scott,
code number, but we
I have
call
a
it that.
problem, right?
Okay.
And the data leaders would usually use the word data dictionary, business glossary,
Yeah.
but no one uses it.
Nobody reads it.
And
Yeah,
the
we-
main
yeah.
question that I think Freddie's asking, how do you promote the culture?
All right.
So I think that really blends into my second fee, which is voice.
Yeah.
How do you harmonize your data story about data management to a common voice? Harmony doesn't mean everybody sings the same notes, but it does mean they sound good together.
True.
Can you articulate this in a very simple way? If you're a data leader, does your whole group understand why what they're doing is important?
Yeah.
If you bump into your CEO in the cafeteria and they go, "What are you doing?" Not threateningly, but it's like, "So what are you guys working on?"
Yeah.
How do you focus on, you must focus on that value discussion, that enablement discussion. So, and voice also under that category for me is some of the things you were asking about. How do you internally market these efforts?
Yeah.
And the importance of creating a standard, the importance of enabling interoperability between our silos and our partners externally. That story needs to be well practiced and work and understandable throughout the rest of the company. So people who don't even deal with data but get touched by it know that this is why you're doing it. And use analogies, use imagery, use basically marketing techniques to
Yeah.
create communication activities. So it's part of what part of what I do for companies is help them put that story together or help
Yeah.
amplify that story. And then the third V would be vision. And there you need to show why what you're doing with data enables the strategic intention of your enterprise. Where's your
Yep.
company trying to go, and why
Yeah.
does data help you get there? And the vision of your data program absolutely has to be the vision of your company. Even when I hear people talk about we need a data strategy, I wonder, your data strategy is your business strategy. So you already have a business strategy. Where
Strategy,
you're going
yeah.
to go with data. If it's different than where your company's going, then you got a good chance of not having a job very soon. You've got to focus
It
on.
must be aligned. It must be aligned. Hence
And-
my phrasing around digitally led. What does that mean? If you're not in, data driven, and you're not digitally, leading in a way, and its capabilities and your strategies don't, align together. But yeah, sorry, I disturbed you there a bit.
But correctly so.
No,
Scott.
so those three V's again, a very simple framework, kind of like my four C's, just simple stuff. It's not a big, heavy duty exercise, but it's just a way to give people some focus and some structure around how they go about telling that data story for data management. Vocabulary, the words you use, voice, the way you talk about it, and vision, why it's important. If you can check those three boxes, you're going to be a long way ahead when it comes to important exercises such as getting funding for all of this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
You want a budget. We all want, this is about getting the money.
Yeah.
So you got to get getting the support and getting the leadership engaged, getting the stakeholders involved,
True.
getting the commitment from these other parts of the organization.
And
to help
often you
create
wish
that
to
data
get
model.
it right the first time when it comes to data. And that's where we all wish to get to, but we also don't really know where the business is going to go. Often businesses start with a vision and have to diversify into other markets and other things that was not part of what the initial business plan. And you wonder then what your data is going to look like.
Yeah.
And when you then have terms such as, digitally led, that means now they're just saying, hey, we're just opening it up to any digital trends that you tech guys can come up with. But the business is going to go where you guys think it's going to go.
Yeah.
So when you have to plan the metadata that's needed for such a data structure, you don't know if they want to know how many peanuts are in the jar or they just want to know how many jars are being shipped out.
Yeah.
You probably need to know both somewhere across the organization.
You do. So, Scott, I want to pick your brain also around governance, right? We've been speaking a lot about data standards, but the governance portion, because I come from a banking background and governance is a big deal, right?
It's hard, yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
Right, and there's audits. There's audits.
Yeah, you have bad data, you're getting a visit from the regulators.
100%. All right. So what are your thoughts on that? What are some of the points that we could sort of take away from that, and just advise different.
I roll governance.
leaders.
The simplicity of my approach is I kind of roll things into these bigger buckets, like I said. So I just put governance as part of data management, data stewardship. I don't
It
get
is.
too detailed below those.
Yeah.
You have to have that governance, and how you execute that governance is going to be different based on the culture, based on your approach. Do you have resistance? Do you have an old legacy company that doesn't even want to deal with data? Do you have a new digitally enabled company that understands data from day one? These are going to vary, but they always come back to needing that governance.
Yeah.
How you structure it could depend on the nature of your organization. But if you don't have that governance, but what is always true is if you don't have that governance, you don't have those standards, then you're going to be in a world of hurt later. Your data is just not going to work. And you're talking about data scientists saving their time.
Yep.
They're always complaining about spending, 80% of their time munging and wrangling data.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you met your data management people in your organization? Why
No.
should they spend? If you had a job and you said 80% of your time was spent doing something that isn't your job, then what job do you have?
I had the same situation at my previous employment, Scott. That's why I decided to just be a podcaster, because I spent most of my time with a cup of coffee in my hand and talking to everybody at the company. Stuart, come on, man. The errors will fix themselves later. But do you really think we should be going in this direction as the company? I mean, we're juniors, but this is just not working out for the whole segment. So
Yeah, I'm
if you
in a
spend
very comfortable place in my career too, where I can just talk about talking about it. So I don't have to
there you
deal
go.
Yeah.
I just come in, I do my song and dance, and I leave, and I go, okay, you guys figure it out.
You guys
Yeah.
figure it out.
But it does have an effect. I think it helps people validate their position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I said, I help people recognize that they're not alone in this. There is some solace in the fact that
Yeah.
the nature of enterprises is such that you're going to have these data challenges.
True.
You still need
Yeah.
to fix them, but
Yeah.
I think it makes people feel a little bit better that it's not just particular to their company.
100%. And then let's talk about your journey around the books, the literacy, because you're solving the same thing that we also trying to solve for, in terms of. Can you see us? Can you still hear us?
Yeah.
Looks
Yeah,
gemmed.
yeah.
No,
Oh.
he was
Oh.
focused.
Yeah.
He
Sorry.
looked
I
like
was intently listening,
You're
man.
like,
I'm just like completely
stand still.
I didn't-
he didn't blink. He didn't not a
I'm
wink,
disciplined.
nothing.
Yeah. We the reason why, right, we've built this podcast, Insights Digital, it's to really drive the literacy and produce knowledge, right, around data and digital, and really grasp these topics, whether it's talking to you about enterprise data warehouse or talking to to a data engineer and talking about again the how and all these
The
different.
how is important. I don't suggest it's not important. I just don't cover that. You
No.
need
Yeah.
both. You gotta,
Yeah.
you have to have why it's important, but then
Yeah.
you have to be able to get it done.
100%, right? So I'm excited also into just talking about your books and what types of sort of lessons that we can get from there. Yes, you've shared the two, but what are the other stuff, right? Because when someone goes onto your profile, they see a lot of stuff around data storytelling. So what does that look like? And how can leaders, right, drive culture? You mentioned voice, using those type of I'll call it a data product, and then drive this culture around the space. Yeah.
I divide data storytelling as everything else into these two buckets. So there's the
Yeah.
more well-known form of data storytelling, which I would actually refer to as analytic storytelling.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the classic, and there's 30 books out there. There's some great leaders, many of whom I know, who've put together these wonderful guidance around telling stories with data,
Yep.
putting data in a business context to drive action, analytics, visualization, narratives, presentations, all that sort of stuff. So I took a step back and went, where's the story about the data?
Yeah.
Where's the story about why you need to make the data versus use the data? So
The truth. Where's the truth?
created this, where's the truth part? So I went out to sort of edge my way into the space and create another niche around data storytelling for data management, telling stories about the data, why it's so important to manage it well, telling stories about where the data starts versus where the data ends up,
Yep.
and trying to help that part of the industry create that narrative that supports the need and funding and engagement that's absolutely required when you want to do enterprise data management and enterprise data governance. So I was drafting on this notion of data storytelling just because it's a hot topic. I've been a storyteller my entire life.
I could tell.
It's hilarious to me at this point in my career that storytelling is an actual thing now
know,
that people
Right?
recognize. But earlier in my life, I would have been kicking back doing podcasts 20 years ago. But
Yeah.
that's really where my talents always were, which is telling story. I worked at Nielsen, and what I did at Nielsen basically in sales and marketing and strategy at its essence was help position and tell a better story about why Nielsen data was important. Did the same thing at Dun & Bradstreet.
Yep.
So I'm good at the storytelling part. I need to be anchored by or paired with some technical expertise with the folks who can get it done.
Talking
Yeah.
about the house.
But I'm the guy who says, like, get people. I'm the guy who, and the power of a good story in an executive setting or anywhere else
Yeah.
is you can get people to go from, I have no idea what you're talking about, to how do we live without this?
Yes.
We need this, right?
Yes.
I didn't even know this existed, and now you're telling me it's the most important thing we've got to do.
Brilliant.
That's
And that's how you start to get that support.
Yeah.
Then they go, how are you going to do it? Okay, now you sold it, and then you got to go on from there. But it really is a sales pitch too. The kind of storytelling that I'm talking about is you're pitching the reason, the benefits of what you have to offer from managing data. And it came from a career of working with data governance and data management professionals who had two primary emotions at the same time. One, they had incredible passion and understanding of the value that their work could bring to their organization.
Yep.
And that was coupled with an intense frustration
Yeah.
because nobody would listen to them.
True. True.
So I would come on the scene and help them bring that idea to the business side, and
Yeah.
lived in this sort of gap
Intermediary
between-
there.
And when I started in my day, it was all IT. So now,
Mm.
thankfully, data is getting away from IT.
It is.
That's
I mean, that's
good
what I
thing.
appreciate about in the conversation with Scott. Then you get that visual sort of understanding of that data is not just those tables and just those.
No, it's not a server.
It's not a server. It's not a server.
No,
But
data's been
data-
around
Yeah.
forever, right? So that's
Yeah.
another thing. Data's
data
been new
goes
oil. But
down
data's
to
not new.
how you run your business. Yeah,
Exactly,
It goes down
yeah.
to how you run your business. Pitching your data as opposed to pitching your business
Yeah.
is what people should then start to understand. That as you pitch the story of your business, you're pitching your data and what it should look
Yeah,
like.
you've got to interweave that and data. The beauty of data, part of what keeps people excited in this space, is that it
Yeah.
can help every part of the company. It has that. You've got all these vertical elements in your business: sales, marketing, finance, operations, executive, and data can provide this horizontal value that cuts across all those verticals.
Yeah.
100%.
It's you've got these silos. It's the foundation. I even explain it in a simplest way. You've got all these columns. It's the row.
It
So if
is.
you think about analytics
connects all
versus
the
master
columns, yeah.
data. Analytics are the columns.
Yeah.
Master data is the row.
It is. It is.
And the columns are about the rows. And we all know from our own experience, you take two spreadsheets and try and bang them together. Easy to add the columns, really hard to align the rows.
It's very, very hard to
Got to get
align
those
the
rows right. I can't think of a simpler way to think about it, just rows and columns.
Yeah. That's it.
Lovely.
That's it.
Lovely.
I think for me, I was actually chatting to to a team in the CETAs. We have what they call enterprise education and training entities in South Africa. And I was talking to the guys about data, and they're like, "Are you talking about IT?" I'm like, "No, this is not IT. Don't." And I just
and it's the world we are trying to escape from. The
Yes.
world where the CEO
Exactly.
comes in and says, "We are going to have amazing lots of many things."
yeah.
And then the CTO has to come in and be like, so we will have to extract more metadata from our consumers to be able to. And the language is just not correlating. It's
Yeah.
not the same
Yeah.
thing. What he's saying, what she's saying, are
Yeah.
just not linking.
No, I think for me, that's really it, right? And to say each and every business unit need to understand that they are a column, right? So forget the data landscape, but the data implications in the business units. To say that, and that for me, that's the core lesson, right? To say your business unit is the column, data is the row.
Yeah.
How does the data fit into each and every business unit? what are the implications, both financially and also through other means, but what does it then overall mean and align to strategy and ultimately impact the business? Yeah? I think for me,
Yeah.
that is the thread, right? So let
But it's
us...
incumbent on the data leaders to draw that connection.
Yeah.
Don't expect the columns to understand why the row is important or the verticals to understand why the horizontal is important. As data leaders, we have to go into those parts of the organization, find those problems that we know data can fix, and then fix them.
Exactly.
And data can help a lot of, as I mentioned, can help the whole organization. If you get a really good master data program going, you can help the whole organization with the same record. You've got, standardized records and entities for those most important parts of your business, relationships and brands, and that touches everyone in an organization.
I'll tell you this, Scott. I've learned more about data from you right now in our short conversation than I have in a lot of books.
wait, thank you.
So tell me, how did you come up with the name, the Data Whisperer?
Oh, yes,
Was someone saying?
actually.
Was someone saying, I can't hear you, Scott? And you're like, I'm talking about data.
Can't hear me. Well, I think you've probably seen already. Spoiler alert. I don't do a lot of whispering myself. I save the whispering for the data, but it came from the horse whisperer. This idea of data management helps calm data down,
Yeah.
train it, helps rein it in. So I just kind of played with it, and I put it on a badge once at a conference. And I just got such great reaction from folks. I went, all right, this is sticking as my moniker here, the data whisperer. I'll just go with it.
Man, I
And there's a
wish I
bunch
was
of
that
data
creative.
whisperers. My feeling is everybody in data management is a data whisperer. So we're all data whisperers one way or the other. I
It
try
i-
to be
it
the
is.
data whisperer, but in any case, we're all data whisperers out there trying to help data. But it seemed to work well. And then I do it. I commit this horrible data sin every time I go to a conference.
Okay.
Because when you fill in your name and company, on a badge, they'll put your name and then they'll put your company.
Oh, yes,
So I don't
yes,
want
yes,
my
yes.
company on there. So I put my title in the company field and I put my name, my company name
No
in the title
ways.
field. Right. Just screwing up their master data, all, but it gets me where I want to go. So my badge will say the Data Whisperer. So
Yeah.
I deliberately go against everything I preach for that one moment just to get that little marketing spin.
Yeah.
Oh man, I
That,
love
that,
it.
that is beautiful, man.
I'm bearing it all here for you guys.
Ah, man,
admitting
yeah,
all my-
you're right. Definitely, ladies and gentlemen, Scott Taylor.
That's it, right?
Gets none better than Scott Taylor. Yeah, Scott. So about your podcast also, what's latest coming up there that we can catch Scott Taylor talking about next?
I'm on other people's podcasts. So I do podcast hosting for hire. So there are brands that hire me to be the host of their podcast, but I don't have my own.
Yeah.
But I do a lot of recordings and webinar. I do a lot of events though. So I'll be the event chair of this big data analytics event in November in Vancouver.
Yeah.
For the 5th time, I'm hosting and emceeing this data marathon that I work with this group called the Think Linkers. We used to do 26 hours in a row. Now we do it over 2 days, but we used to literally go around the clock. It was crazy.
Oh yeah.
But I do a lot of events wherever I can. I love it, as you can probably tell. I think I have a fear of not public speaking.
I see.
I love being on stage.
You
It's
and
like the bigger
I,
the
you
crowd,
and
the
I
better
have
I
the
am.
same fears.
So that's, it's like, get me up there. I'm happy to just get people inspired and hopefully laughing a little bit and coming away with, okay, that was fun and I learned something. If somebody
Yeah.
says that to me, it's like, that's the perfect react. That's what I'm going for. So if
That's
I can make that
exactly the
happen,
target.
That's
eh?
it.
my
That's
job
it.
that day.
That's it.
Yeah, that's
Scott.
me.
I think
So-
I'm gonna follow your trail. I'm gonna go out there.
All right. There's
And
plenty
and
of
I'm
room
gonna-
out there, Freddie.
Yeah,
There's
I'm gonna
plenty
be
of
the
opportunity.
I'm gonna be the data motivator. That's what it is.
All
I'm
right.
gonna motivate you to good data.
Get a
I'm gonna-
moniker. We all need a
Get your
moniker.
data right
Yes.
one time. See, motivational. I
Scott.
feel inspired already.
Thank you so much, man. We truly appreciate your insights. We appreciate your time, man. You know, it's in the morning. You could be doing other business, and you having coffee with us.
Talking data.
We're talking all things data. I think we'd really love to tap into your brain again, because I think we haven't. I know we talked about a lot, but we haven't really talked about much. And I'd love us to sort of zoom into different use cases, maybe in the next session, and just draw really good insights, because I mean, we now talked to the leader, right, to the CEO, but I'd like us to also talk to the chief data officer, who needs to make these decisions and is finding it very complex in terms of telling his head of data management to say, hey, you need to drive this, and this is what it looks like. And I think there's also complexities in that translation. It's not just CDO to CEO, but it's also CDO to heads, and to say, or leads, and to say, what does that mean? So that when they go and trickle it down below to the other business units, draw those insights, draw those lessons, draw that transformation.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people speak about digital transformation. I personally, when I speak to leaders, I also speak about data transformation.
True.
And say transformation is not the technical transformation, but really the literacy, the voice, the consistency, and just making it palatable for other stakeholders to enjoy and be able to understand at a greater length. So thank you so much for gracing Insights Digital Podcast. One of this is really one of those cool sessions we've had.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our viewers are going to really love this. And yeah, thank you so much. Any parting
Cool.
words?
Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's great talking to you. Happy to come back again when you get some more episodes out there, talk about the use case stuff. If people want to find me, they can find me on LinkedIn, Scott Taylor, the Data Whisperer.
Yeah.
I've got a YouTube channel as well with 50-something videos, puppet shows, cartoons. I do all kinds of wacky stuff, so they should take a look at that.
100%.
My book, Telling Your Data Stories, on Amazon and everywhere else. But it's been a pleasure talking to you both about a topic we all care a lot about, which is making sure people have the best data possible.
Yeah.
Scott, let's definitely keep in tune and keep in conversation. And we will definitely appreciate having you in another conversation about data as we really get into the depths of it. Ladies
Oh
and
yes, enjoy the view. Enjoy the view.
Go enjoy the view.
Time to enjoy the view
Enjoy
now.
the view. Yeah.
Cheers.